Perfect. And you've addressed my follow-up to that, so thank you for doing so. On climate change, you are one of 6 countries who have pledged to cut gas emissions in order to mitigate global warming.
Yes.
What are some of the mechanisms that you've put in place since last year?
I must admit, first of all, that that was a very ambitious commitment on the part of Antigua and Barbuda. But we felt that it was necessary for us to send a clear signal that that is what ought to happen. And so we have begun the process of putting a number of mechanisms in place. I have set up what I call a national energy unit right in the Prime Minister's office, where all this whole issue of where we're going with energy and energy uses and alternatives to fossil fuels and all that, we are working seriously on that. We have also strengthened our environment division so that issues pertaining to global warming, climate change, and so on, all these we are focusing on a daily basis. We are sensitizing, educating, enlightening the people of Antigua and Barbuda as to what this thing means for the future of this country. What is climate change? How it's impacting on us? We are vulnerable to all sorts of disasters. What can we do to mitigate? How can we in the region, for instance, come together and address some of these issues in a positive way? What can we as a people do on our own as individuals to seek to understand and appreciate some of the issues involved? And by our own action, we can help to prevent some of these things from happening. So we are on the path of ensuring that we can meet that ambitious objective. And we have started the process. We are engaging at the regional level as well and at the international level. We're seeking support by the international community for some of the efforts that we are endeavoring to make in Antigua and Barbuda on this issue. But we are a very strong proponent of addressing this climate change issue in a very positive way. And of course, we need the support of the regional and international community. In fact, all Caribbean states would need that support. But speaking for Antigua and Barbuda, we are seeking to strengthen the mechanisms that we have in place to ensure that we get the human capital that will be able to assist us in moving the process forward, the other resources that are available. I mean, Antigua and Barbuda is a service economy. We're heavily dependent on tourism, and we're famous for our beaches. But 365, and in a leap year we will find the 366th. But the point is, we recognize that with climate change and global warming, we may be losing our coastline. All sorts of things are going to happen. So it's a real concern that we have. We are in the hurricane belt. We know what can happen to that. Volcanoes, earthquakes, all these sorts of things can happen to us. And in less than no time, in 24 hours, the whole society can be rearranged by any of these things descending upon us. So we are very much conscious of that, and that is why we are very supportive of moving in a particular direction with respect to climate change. But as I said, we are a small, vulnerable state. We will not be able to meet these objectives unless support comes from the international community.
Absolutely. Prime Minister, my final question is on sustainable development and a comprehensive global recovery strategy. As a former chairperson of the G77, what do you think can be done to ensure that G20 members, the G20 process, includes more non-G20 members for for allotting space to introduce comprehensive answers for recovery and for the future of sustainable development, if it's truly to be sustainable. What do you think can be done in this way?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's an absolute necessity for the G20 countries to recognize that in order for us to really address the concerns of developing countries, and especially most of the G77 countries, that we have to have somewhat of a seat at the table. Even from the point of view of being in a position to state our case in a way that it is better appreciated and understood. We cannot be locked out of that process, because really and truly, the future of mankind, especially in the G20 countries, will be very much dependent on the extent to which we get it right in the developing countries. So with the world shrinking in a way, and with this global village, we are all in this struggle together. So that if the G20 countries really are serious about stability and peace and so on throughout the world, then it is important for them to give us a voice so that we can sit around the table and we can really look at what is happening and make decisions that will be beneficial, not only to G20 countries, but to the world. And we believe that that ought to be the approach, not to give us the impression that they will meet by themselves, they will make the decisions, and then these decisions are imposed, or we are affected by those decisions. Let us be part and parcel of the process. Let us work together to find the solutions to the problems. And might I also make this point, that some of the issues that we are grappling with respect to the worldwide economy and the effects that it is having, most of the issues surrounding that and the conditions under which the world economy has to operate now, a lot of these things did not develop, or we had very little to do with some of these issues. But we are the ones who are even more affected by them. And that is why the communication has to be real and has to be understood, that we have to be given a voice, we have to be given a seat at the table. Let us together as a people look at where we are and determine the best way forward, recognizing that if the situation persists where the developing countries continue to be in a state of underdevelopment, then it is not going to serve the world community good. We have to find ways and means of ensuring that as the world develops, the most vulnerable parts of the world and the people therein are brought out of that state. And we can only do it if we work together. We cannot be seen to be working apart. And again, stressing the whole issue of private-public partnerships with a people-oriented agenda is what this thing is all about.
Thank you so much. Prime Minister Spencer.
It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this with us. From the Office of the Prime Minister, thank you for joining us here on South South News. I'm Afaf Kanja. We'll see you soon.